Hello and welcome back. I'm James. I make music as Daycatcher. Today we're going to keep looking at my program Soltet, which is a physics-based instrument, production playground, whatever you want to call it. I am 0 for 2, y'all. I thought that I had done research on whether this type of program existed and whether something was called Oddball. Last week we talked about how Oddball was already taken as a name. I had done a lot of research. And then in the comments of that video, shout out to Beats Based In, they let me know that this kind of program already exists. Thankfully, it is a little different. This one that we were talking about is called Droplets by Finn Mitchell-Agnon. From what I've tried so far, it's really dope. Let's get into it. Here's Droplets. It looks great. You can tap to make different drippers, and then you can click to make what they call bars. It is actually like MIDI enabled. You can plug this in as a plugin. I'm using it as a standalone application, but I've tried it in Logic and everything, and it works really well. They call this a sequencer, which I think is accurate. It is less about randomization. For example, these bars, all of these are the same note when they bounce. You can like make them smaller and that'll change the note. One of the coolest things I think they've done is the quantization. I had not even really considered that, what I was going for with the randomness and like the physical feeling, but I think they do it really well. And that already sounds dope. Yeah, this is a really good product. Let me wipe everything. Another thing they do that's pretty interesting is that tempo and gravity are more intertwined. So if you see here, like turning the tempo down a lot makes it slower in gravity and kind of like the time scale more than just gravity itself. I did introduce gravity. We'll get into that for a bit for Soltet. Yeah, this has like a built-in synth, which is fucking sick. The wind is interesting. I have considered something like that. Keeps everything very organic. Kind of trying to look at this and see where I can draw inspiration from, but where I also want to differ. So from this, I definitely had considered doing something like clicking to move the different droppers. You know, on mine, it's just the 5 right now. I think being able to move them is pretty sweet. I have thought about doing these kind of like bars instead of the circular peg pads that I have. I had actually started with like square things, but I didn't like that they could kind of like end up not bouncing, which isn't really a big deal because if they go to a standstill, then they just delete themselves, the balls. But I don't know, I kind of like the look of the circular pads. And I do think the kind of like general vibe is one of its selling points, something that differentiates it. You know, the 3D look is pretty fun in my opinion. It makes it feel like your own little world. The balls are 3D and them hitting each other is a pretty main focus. You know, I'm not really a programmer, so it would be hard to like say if I could do Soltet as a plugin right now. My response to Based In was basically that the 3D rendering and lighting that Godot handles for me, I wouldn't be able to do off top. So somebody's like got ideas for that, let me know. But I do think I'm gonna kind of keep planning it as a standalone program. But yeah, shout out again to Finn and Based In. This is awesome. If you're looking for something that's more of a plugin, more of a sequencer, then you definitely want to check this out. All right, back over in Soltet land. The first thing I want to show off this week is pushing the sound of the balls global. If I set these pads to be empty, you know, it's just the balls bouncing off each other that makes the noise. But then if I click the balls and I choose this global button, those pads will then take in that sound. If I switch one of these pads to like the harp, I can push that to the ball sounds and the rest of the pads. Now each of the pads have this global lock setting. It just makes it really easy to like change everything at once and try out different sounds. Next, I mentioned earlier in the video, but we have gravity now. So I'd shown off the bounciness before. You can make things bounce more or less. But now we have gravity affected as well. Then it kind of looks like moon gravity or whatever. So that's pretty fun to mess around with. I'll probably keep tweaking the limits of it and, you know, maybe introduce some other ways to mess with that. All right, to show off the next thing, I'll make a new little arrangement here. Let's introduce some effects. All right, and then the thing I want to show off next is Zen mode. Click down at the bottom and hide all the UI. And yeah, I think it's just a really fun way to kind of get lost in it. You know, after making a new arrangement, I tend to want to just sit there and, you know, appreciate it. And as always, let's bring that into Logic, make a little beat, get the MIDI recording working well. That's feeling good. But I really like that sample, so we're just gonna use the audio. Recorded a little vocal chop and threw it in there too. I'm pretty hyped on how this one turned out. It's fun. that is going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you stuck around this long, I appreciate you checking this out. I've got only a couple more like core features that I want to introduce before getting it out for people to test. I mentioned last week I want to get like save and load. That's kind of the last big thing. I might hold off on multi-select now that we have the, you know, push to global buttons, and I'm thinking early April. So if you haven't yet, join the Discord and follow along there. Got people suggesting a lot of fun ideas, and it'll definitely be the place to like give feedback once I have the test out. So yeah, thank you so much. See you in the next one.